This is Final Fantasy IV on Super Famicom. Originally released in 1991 by Square, it's one of the defining early entries in the series that really helped shape what Final Fantasy would become. What I've always liked about this release is how much of the world and characters are already reflected in the packaging itself. The box art gives you that classic 16-bit interpretation of the cast and setting, showing you the tone of the game before you even start it. Inside, you've got the manual, and it continues that same approach. Each page focuses on the main characters, almost like a structured introduction to the world you're about to step into. It's very much how games of this era had to communicate story and identity through physical media. Then you've got the cartridge itself, simple but iconic, and the strategy guide, which still keeps that same 2D character presentation across everything. Box, manual, guide, all staying consistent with how the game was originally experienced in that generation. Everything here shows how the game was presented and experienced in its original form. But this is only one layer of how this world was imagined. Before it became sprites and manuals, the characters and monsters were first envisioned through the artwork of Yoshitaka Amano. And this is that vision brought together. Yoshitaka Amano's artwork is instantly recognizable and has become one of the most iconic visual identities in Final Fantasy history. His designs take the characters and monsters of Final Fantasy IV and reimagine them in a completely different light, far more detailed, expressive, and surreal compared to the 16-bit sprites in the game. What makes it so interesting is the contrast between the two. The simple, limited pixel sprites used in-game, and Amano's flowing, intricate illustrations that feel almost dreamlike. The two styles represent the same characters, but in completely different forms of expression. Seeing them side by side really shows how the sprites and Amano's artwork coexist. One shaped by hardware limitations, and the other shaped purely by imagination. What I really love about his work is how he takes even something like airships and monsters and turns them into something that feels alive in a completely different way. These aren't just designs for a game, they feel like they exist in a much larger world outside of it. Even the more mechanical ideas, like the airships, still have this painted, almost dreamlike quality to them. And the monsters feel less like enemies and more like ancient creatures from a myth. It really makes you realize how much personality was already there in Final Fantasy IV, and how much of that identity comes from his vision of the world. Seeing it all together, the game, the guide, and the art, it's all the same world, just seen through different interpretations. From 16-bit sprites to pure imagination, that's what makes Final Fantasy IV so special.